So you just see the sequence of this happening. Can't you just see that that's all kind of coming together fairly quickly? Now, in February 15th of the next year, so again, we're like 2 months later, December 18th to February 15th, we're 2 months later, and it's going to be Zechariah verse 1-7 up through Zechariah 6-8. You're going to have 8 visions. It's one long night for Zechariah. One night he goes to bed apparently, and God wakes him up 8 times and brings him into the presence of angelic hosts and shows him things, images. I'm going to run through them very quickly. 8 images that Zechariah is going to see. And each of these has a pertinent message for these people. Again, you can get a little bit of eschatology or end times out of this or what's going to happen in the future, but most of what you see in the book of Zechariah up through chapter 6, verse 8 is for the exiles that have returned. We can get doctrine from it. We can get insight. We can learn the character of God. We can see what God did in history. We see how God revealed himself. And there is, like I say, a little bit of future eschatology we could draw out of it. But basically, this was talking to these people right now, right here in 519, again, encouraging them and telling them, this is what's going on behind the scenes. Oh, you've built this little temple that's called the Temple of Zerubbabel. He says, it's a little temple. You're back here. You're trying to rebuild your city. They don't even have walls yet. There's still opposition. But understand, all that you see is not all that there is. There's a lot happening in those spiritual dimensions. God is now going to show them these things and encourage them. So here we go. Number 1 is a man among the myrtle trees, is what's titled in the NIV. Verse 1, on the 24th day of the 11th month, I already read that, it says, the word of the Lord came to Zechariah. Verse 8, during the night I had a vision. Now this is one of 8. And there before me was a man riding in a red horse. Now again, I'm drawn, I want to teach this verse by verse and get out of here about 12 o'clock tonight. But I'm going to just, again, so I'm going to have to just say some things that, you can argue with me if you want. I mean, not during class. I mean, we can ask questions and stuff and argue with me later. But, unless I get very, very heretical. This man right here, I'm going to tell you, I believe is the Son of God. It's a theophany. It's a manifestation of the Son of God, which we would call Jesus or the Christ. He's the Lord of hosts. He's the head of all the angels. And just, we could talk about that later as we go. It's a theophany, I believe, but nonetheless. And there before me was a man riding a red horse. He was standing among the myrtle trees in a ravine. Behind him were red, brown, and white horses. I asked, what are these, my Lord? The angel who was taught to me answered, I will show you what they are. Then the man standing among the myrtle trees, so there's an angel with him, and then there's a man among the myrtle trees. 2 different people. And again, there's all kinds of people in this, or personalities in this vision. They're the ones the Lord has given to go throughout the earth. So he sees these red, brown, and white horses. They go throughout the earth. And they reported to the angel of the Lord. Now, the man among the myrtle trees is probably called the angel of the Lord, which now is a huge declaration. This is the Son of God. But nonetheless, they reported to the angel of the Lord, who was standing among the myrtle trees, we have gone throughout the earth and found the whole world at rest and in peace. So they've gone out. These angelic hosts on their horses have gone out throughout the world. Remember, Judah has come back into the land. Now these angels have gone out and they report to the man among the myrtle trees, which I believe to be the Son of God. Or at least if you don't agree with that, he's the head angel in this vision. And they say, the world is at peace and rest. And of course, isn't that just what we all want? Is peace and rest? You'd think so. But notice this angel Lord, or the theophany, what he says. Then the angel of the Lord said, Lord Almighty. Now this would be him talking to another member of the Trinity, God the Father. Again, in my theology, you can argue that if you want to. Lord Almighty, how long will you withhold mercy from Jerusalem and from the towns of Judah, which you have been angry with these 70 years? They report back and say, peace, there's safety all around the world. The Persians, Darius, and as we know, we talked about this last week, Darius began to reign right around 521, right after a period of where false Smyrtus had come in, and there was chaos in the Persian Empire. Cambyses was before false Smyrtus, and then Smyrtus came in. So the empire is kind of unraveling. But within 24 months, Darius snaps things in line, the current Persian king. And so if this vision took place 24 months ago, we don't know who the real emperor is. We don't know who the king is. We've got problems with Egypt. We've got problems here. The whole empire seems to be unraveling. But now, on this night, when this vision takes place, what's going on in the world? The angels come back and say, there's peace. It's organized. There's not a problem. Peace and safety. The angel of the Lord speaks to God the Father, or to God, and says, how long will you withhold mercy from Jerusalem? We don't want this peace. There's judgment that we need to take care of. We can't have peace. Kind of a different twist on this, isn't it? The angel of the Lord's upset about peace on earth. So the Lord spoke kind and comforting words to the angel who talked with me. What would those kind words be? He's upset because there's peace. When is judgment going to take place? And he speaks kind and comforting words. Says, we'll take care of this, all in good time. Then the angel who was speaking to me proclaimed this word. This is what the Lord Almighty says. I am very jealous for Jerusalem and Zion, but I am very angry with the nations that feel secure. And the Hebrew word for very angry, or phrase would be, with a great anger, I am angry. With those nations who think they've got peace right now. They think they've maneuvered their way through my judgment, but not so. I'm jealous for Jerusalem. Although they look small, I'm out going to get these other nations. I was only a little angry, but they added to the calamity. Therefore, this is what the Lord all says. I will return to Jerusalem with mercy, and there my house will be rebuilt, and the measuring line will be stretched out over Jerusalem, declares the Lord. This is what the Lord Almighty says. My towns will again overflow with prosperity, and the Lord will again comfort Zion and choose Jerusalem. So there it was, a message of, I will judge them. I'm upset that they're thinking they're secure. I'm going to shake them, but I'm going to bless Jerusalem. So that's, again, a good message that he had to write down. The second one, the 4 horns and 4 craftsmen is what it's called here in the NIV. Verse 18, then I looked up, and there before me were 4 horns. Now, horns represent power. Many times in visions, Daniel especially, they represent some kind of a king. And again, once you have a king, it represents a nation or an empire. This is probably something like the Babylon, Persia, Greece, and Rome for the 4 empires. And again, we could debate on what those would be. But that would be an easy way just for tonight to go through it quickly. I asked the angel who was speaking to me, what are these? What are these horns? He answered me, these are the horns that scattered Judah, Israel, and Jerusalem. Okay, now if you say scattered in the past tense, is that like Egypt, Assyria, Babylon, Persia? I mean, what is it? But anyway, there's 4 empires. The main, and that's really has no value necessarily on what those 4 empires are in this. The point of this is, although I do want to make sure we're accurate, the point of it is, these scattered Judah. Then the Lord showed me 4 craftsmen. What are these coming to do? So you see these 4 horns, or these 4 empires, whatever they are, and they at some point had scattered Israel. And then also in the vision, here comes 4 craftsmen. Think of construction guys, 4 construction men with their chainsaws. It's like, well, what are these? These are the craftsmen. Well, what are they going to do? Well, he says, the answer, these are the horns that scattered Judah so that no one could raise his head, but the craftsmen have come to terrify them and throw down these horns of the nations who lifted up their horns against the land of Judah to scatter the people. They're coming in to saw these horns off. They're done. So there'll be some kind of angelic construction crew coming to remove these horns. So that's the second vision. These empires, they've done their job. Don't worry. Jerusalem's not going to have to go get them. God is going to come cut them down. Chapter 2, vision 3. Again, you can see how this will all be encouraging for these people at this time, for Zechariah to come out in the morning and say, hey, I had a word from the Lord. I had 8 of them. Then I looked up, and there before me was a man with a measuring line in his hand. Again, they're building, a lot of building going on here. That's why you got some construction images. But the measuring line, that's a tape measure. A man's got a tape measure. Where are you going? He answered me, to measure Jerusalem, to find out how wide and how long it is. Then the angel who was speaking to me left, and another angel came to meet him and says, run, tell that young man, Jerusalem will be a city without walls because of the great number of men and livestock in it. He's measuring, and the man's out there, the angel's doing an acting job here or whatever, but he's measuring, how big is this going to be? Well, we're going to put a wall here and put a wall here. And here comes the man running, no, don't measure it. Don't put a wall up. This thing's, you're going to just tear it down. He says it's going to be a city without walls, not without protection and not unguarded, but it's like, this thing's exploding. You've got suburbs, guys. Don't be putting walls up. So again, the image is there. They're looking at their little temple, looking at their little remnant, and the angels are saying, don't be thinking about where you're going to put the streets. This thing's going to explode. And it goes on. You can see more about that.